We're actually on.
We're live.
We're live.
Well, if we need to move
Yeah,
on.
how
I mean,
do
I don't have to stay
work?
here.
Camera-wise.
Yeah, that might work. How's that look?
Hi.
And this is Brent.
Yeah, it actually totally works.
Does
I'm
it?
really irresponsible and late of late
Yeah.
for night
Good.
appointments.
Hey, sorry everybody that's watching. We got started a little late here due to the bandwidth. We're having a little internet connectivity stuff. But so let's start over from the top here.
All right.
If you could just give us a brief outline about why you're here and who you are, and anytime.
Want to start again?
Sure. I'm Dan Drika, and I've lived here for over 9 years, and I do agriculture here. I have a vineyard and grow a lot of my own food. I'm trying to live as sustainably as possible. I have my own house, and yeah, so I've made Dancing Rabbit my home.
Cool. Want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Brent Whistler. I moved here from Chicago in October. The main reason that I'm here is because I was tired of driving. I have lots of other reasons. They change which one's most important day to day, but they have to do with sustainability, living a quieter life, growing my own food, and living with fewer belongings, because belongings just really drive me crazy.
Nice. And I'm Teresa Brown. I've lived here for 16 years, and I've been in a number of roles over that time. Been here a long time, and so I have a lot of information I can share. So feel free to ask questions about the old days, or what it's like to be really new, or how things have changed, whatever. We're open to whatever. Please ask away.
We did have, Aaron, you had a question from last week that was sort of left over. Do you want to start with that one, or people asking questions already?
Somebody has asked how do villagers deal with sort of coping with kind of pessimism, coping with difficult information. I think they're probably asking specifically around like climate change and the state of the world. Does anybody want to speak to that?
Mm-hmm.
I'll go.
Go, Brent.
Well, I feel like my approach is a little different than some people's in that I sort of have a cynical edge offset by an optimist edge. And the optimist side of me says that Mother Earth is going to survive this. So the pessimist edge of me says that she might just have to scrape the humans off the planet to do so. And I think that's okay. And so that's how I deal with it. That I just don't think it's all doom and gloom. I think everything has a life cycle. And I think we can influence the life cycle and make it better and make our presence more sustainable. But if we don't, it's not the end of the world. It just might be the end of us.
That's true.
I deal with the depression by drinking a lot and taking lots of drugs. And
Good answer.
Not really.
no. I think that's why I live here, because I feel like living here, I'm doing something about the problems. Of course, like when you live here, you kind of integrate all these ways of living sustainably into your life, and then you sort of take them for granted because it's so easy to live that way. It's like when you're living in the mainstream, every little thing that you do that's sustainable seems like you're accomplishing something. Whereas here, it's like we've integrated it all and it's become second nature, and so you don't even pay attention to it and you take it for granted. So the way that I sort of get re-inspired is doing stuff like this, talking to people, answering questions, and reminding myself that I'm living here and I'm doing all these things. And that's what inspires me. I don't think as much about the future because I'm pretty pessimistic about the future. I think we're all headed to hell in a handbasket. Like, I think we're screwed. And looking at the presidential election, I'm just like, wow, how depressing is that? So you can't think about that stuff. You have to think, that you can only take it day by day and do what you can today, and maybe things will go to shit in the future, but we'll deal with that when it comes and try to do as much now to change things.
Yeah, I don't think my answer is that different. Being here makes it easier to not feel so miserable because I'm doing as much as I can here, and like helping raise the next generation of kids who, if anybody survives, it's probably going to be our kids. Because, I mean, Althea could probably survive in the woods for weeks on what she could forage there, better than I could.
All my strawberries
What's your strawberries?
Can I just throw something out related?
and greens.
I think us living here in this eco village really just spit in the wind for the planet as far as direct impact. Like, let's be honest, that 50 people living in an eco village is not going to save the planet.
Mm-hmm.
I think actually what we're doing right here, right now, is more important, and that is getting the word out and having other people think about the fact that it is actually a way to. There are ways to live that are more sustainable, and you know, one of the things that I noticed when I came here from living in another country is how consumer oriented we were, that I just didn't know what to do with myself when I came back. I'm like, oh, all I have to do is go to bars, restaurants, and like stores. That's all there is. Or it felt like that. And we're living a little bit differently here and communicating about it. And I think the communicating part is more important than the actual living part.
I think they're both important. I think, well, I do think the demonstration piece of it is really important, and that does help me feel like, oh, I am making a difference. I am showing other people ways to live that are different and letting them know it's possible. Because, I mean, when I lived in the city before I came here, I was in despair all the time, and I still get depressed and I still feel crappy, but it's not all the time. It's not as all encompassing because I am trying to do something a little bit different. It helps me sometimes too to get out of the eco village and go and be where it is harder to live this way. I'm like, I can't find where to put this recyclable thing. Where's the recycling area? Whatever, things that shouldn't be a big deal, and they're not here, but they are when you go out in the world and try to do them. So it helps for me to get away and realize the stuff you were saying, Dan, about how we really have set it up that it's just what we do. It's just doesn't seem like as big a deal. That's mine.
Yeah, and I think this isn't the only place you can do that. I think
Of
we've
course.
set it up here so that it's a village that's set up where it integrates all your ways of living and makes them sustainable, but you know, you can take bits and pieces of that and implement them in your life where you are, you know, and make it bit by bit more and more sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
Can you ask people to ask some questions?
Ask some
Okay,
questions.
we need some more questions to answer.
What you got?
We finished
We'll
the
have to start. We'll have to
depression
start making
question.
them up.
I've got one. What do you have to build a natural building only when you move to Dancing Rabbit?
Nope. I didn't. That's the short answer. Basically, you can do whatever you want as long as it's within our covenants, which means a number of things. The most basic one is any wood that you use has to be reclaimed or sustainably harvested, or there's another thing that we changed recently. But I live in a building that's a green building. It's fairly standard construction. But it's built with 2x8 walls, so there's lots of room for extra insulation. So it's really energy efficient and very comfy and cozy, and I love it very much. But I don't live in a natural building anymore. I've lived in a number of natural buildings, and they're wonderful, but I chose to do green building from the building that I actually paid someone else to build for me. I also discovered living here that I don't actually enjoy building very much. I'm glad to know about it, but I don't actually want to do it anymore. Done all I want, thanks. I'll come help stomp cobs every once in a while, but that's all I want to do.
I thought I would just jump in right and like just start building right away, but I just have so many other things to do that I'm really glad I found a house to buy. And it's a house that kind of had a bad reputation, but it turns out it's a great house, and I've been loving it and put a little bit of work into it, not a lot. And it was very comfortable for me in the winter, and it sort of gave me some breathing room to sort of settle in and do other things and integrate to the community, to not feel like I was on some sort of I don't want to call it a death march. What else should I call it? Like some kind of crazy like building frenzy to get a place to live. So I think that actually coming here as somebody who doesn't intend to build is getting more possible now,
For sure.
and it's not like a foregone conclusion that you have to build something.
Yeah, we have a few houses for sale, definitely.
Hmm.
If you want to move here.
And if you do want to come and build a natural building, that's totally fine. There's a lot of people who can give you a ton of information and offer their expertise, or you could even hire someone to build you a natural building if that's what you want. So you can do it, but you don't have to.
You
Kind of like a lot of things.
Yeah, I live in a natural building. Mine's a straw bale house with timber framing on 3 sides and stick framing on the south side. It's passive solar design. I also have a YouTube channel called Hardcore Sustainable, and I do have a video that sort of goes through and explains my house and some of the details. There's 2 videos on there that talk about my house. So if you want to find that out and see the pictures, you can check out my YouTube channel. But
Say it again, Hardcore Sustainable.
Hardcore Sustainable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool.
And yeah, so I've lived there for 5 years now. And when I first moved to Dancing Rabbit, I lived in a place called Wisteria Lodge, which used to be, it's a tiny house that was over at Red Earth Farms, which is a neighboring community. And then the opportunity came up to buy it, and it was just basically the shell of the house. And so I had it moved over here and finished it. And then I lived in that while I was building this house that I'm living in now. And so now I rent out Wisteria. But I really like my house. It's super efficient. It works really well. I burn almost, like a very small amount of wood throughout the winter, and mostly I can heat the house with the sun during the winter time. And it's pretty much the first house that I've ever built, and I'm surprised that it's not falling down right now. It's like still in pretty good shape. The only flaw I think in it is the earthen floor, and I made a mistake with the earthen floor in wanting to use all natural materials. So
And have a dog.
no, B&Jo
That's not
hasn't
the
really
problem.
affected it. No, it's basically I put straw as the insulation, like clay straw, and so it has settled since then. And it's just kind of inevitable that straw is going to settle with a heavy weight on top of it. And I knew that going in, but didn't know, what to expect. And I was like, I'd rather do this than the pink foam insulation.
Nastiness, yeah.
But now I think I'm going to tear it all out and put in the pink
foam?
because I'd rather have that than a sinking floor, that I have to repair every 2 years. So.
And that's a big part of living here is experimenting with stuff, and you try it and, oh, hey, that didn't work. Great. And now when someone comes through and says, hey, Dan, I've got this great idea. I want to build a totally natural earthen floor. You'll be like, sure, you could, but let me tell you the problems I had with that. And you might want to do pink foam.
Well, and that's what Dennis and Sharon, actually, when they were building their house, Dennis was really interested in doing the light clay straw, and I warned him against it. But then I told him, like, all the things that I think that they should do to, alleviate and prevent the problems that I was having with it. And I think they did that. So they sort of pre-compressed everything, put the base coat of plaster floor down, and then they walked on it for like a year. And that's what I recommended, that it allows it to sink. And I think it worked out
It looks
better
great
for
right
them.
now.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it has any cracks or any sinking happening. So
Cool.
yeah, I think you're right. But what I would recommend is we get people here, and I think they move here and they think they don't want to learn from people or something. And so they just don't listen to people who are saying, don't do this, don't do this, and this, and this. I mean, you do get conflicting views from
Sure,
different
there's that problem.
people, so it can be confusing. But we definitely get people here who are warned against doing things, and then they really regret not listening to the people. So anyways, that's one thing to know is that, if you don't know a lot about building or natural building, try to find somebody who knows a lot and learn from them and listen to them. So.
My house is on its 2nd floor.
Second floor. Not the second floor.
It only has one
it's
floor.
Second floor.
Yeah.
It's had one twice.
All right, so there's some confusion about how to ask questions. There's a box right here.
Near my breast.
If you're sorry, if you're watching on YouTube, there's a chat box right down there. If you're watching from there on the web from a desktop or something. If you're watching mobile, right below the video, and if you're watching on Facebook, just enter your questions below the video on Facebook.
Well, I had no idea how to ask a question.
You just you
I
were
have
just
a-
raising
I have
your
a
hand in your house.
question.
Wait. Is that why you're here? Is
You
to
mean
ask
when you were
questions?
watching it, or you have no idea now? How to
I'm
ask
kidding.
a
I've
question?
never watched it.
So I got a question.
Okay.
Is everybody vegan in the village?
Why? Actually,
Is
no.
that your question, or is that somebody
That's a
else's? Okay.
No. In fact, there's very few vegans who still live here. What? Just a few.
Joe?
And Adriana and Justin, if
Okay.
when
If
they come back. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sort of a lazy vegan because we have that one vegan in my food co-op. So
He's
we
not
tend
vegan. He eats vegan.
I know,
Totally
yeah,
different.
he's selectively vegan, but I'm not, and I'm an unintentional vegan, and that meat's not all that important to me. I'm not going to go out of my way to make 2 meals or whatever, so I just cook vegan,
Mhm.
and then if meat comes along, I'll probably eat it.
I'm curious, is the question being asked because you're not a vegan and so you wouldn't want to come here because you think that it's all vegan, or you are a vegan and you're worried that your needs wouldn't be met? I'm just curious if the person that asked the question is still there and can type in your chat box, wherever it is.
It was vague.
Okay,
If they ask again, I'll let you know.
great.
So our friend Alyssa Lindsay
Oh,
is watching. Say hi.
hi,
Hi.
Alyssa.
She wants to know how the pond is this time of year.
I haven't been in it. Somebody who's been in it recently.
Oh, it's day by day. Like,
Yeah.
some days you jump in and it's like a bath water for the first 18 inches, and then maybe kind of like intermittent cool currents below. And then other days it's just perfect. We've had kind of weather that's been all over the place lately. I bet it's really nice and cool right now.
Somebody said that we got almost 2 inches of rain or
We
something?
got three
Like,
and a half inches the
3.5.
last time it rained. Yeah, and the pond was actually overflowing. It
really
was
over.
flowing out of the pipe. Yeah, it's in, like
Cool.
we had like a drought for a couple of months, and so the water level went way
Wow.
down. And then in the last month or so, we've gotten probably like 12 inches of rain or something, and so it's gone back up, and now it's full again. So I didn't feel as bad about taking all that water out of there for
To
irrigating.
water, yeah.
But,
Well, she says she's jealous that the
You should be.
pond is full.
It's really nice right now.
Another question: how much snow does Dancing Rabbit get?
I moved here in October. I ain't seen any snow. Maybe like a
There's a
half
wind.
an inch spread over 3 storms.
But that was just this one year.
Right.
So it really varies a lot, and I think the thing that's happening with climate change is it's changing. So we will have winters like that, but we also, it wasn't too long ago, we had a ton more snow than we used to, like 2 or 3 feet, and then it went away, and then another 2 or 3 feet, which hasn't been that common.
Yeah, a few winters ago, it was like super cold. I
And
mean,
cold.
and actually, the first time since I've been here, the pond, our old pond, froze solid and killed all the fish in it. So
Sorry, fish.
yeah, that was a super cold winter, but that was as cold as I've seen
But
it
on the upside, frozen fish.
for the chickens.
Yeah, chickens. Yeah, it's super variable. Sometimes there's hardly any, and sometimes, like last year, there was no sledding, right? And did they not play
No.
broom ball even once?
I don't even
Yeah.
think anybody
Yeah.
got on the pond because I don't think it was
The kids
reliably
did.
frozen enough.
But yeah, I didn't think it was reliable.
I
enough.
feel like what we've mostly gotten here and what people talk about is freezing rain. That we usually get freezing rain instead of snow in the wintertime. Everything just gets covered in a sheet of ice and you fall on your ass. So
That did happen a couple times this winter, didn't it?
Well, but the good part is sometimes that melts. But also when you go outside in the morning and every single tree branch is covered and has lots of little beautiful icicles and the sun comes out and it's super sparkly, if you don't have to go anywhere, which I mean, I commute to my desk, which is right next to my bed. So
yeah,
it's
pretty.
beautiful.
I've seen you work. You're usually in bed. Come on.
No, I sit at my desk.
Oh, okay. Is that when I'm not there?
It's when you're there, I have to be on the bed.
Oh, okay.
Someone on Facebook is curious about whether or not the village is actually doing anything to address climate change. Go.
Who's going to answer that?
We're doing this talk right now. We're encouraging people to live like we do.
Do you mean like
questions?
You mean like lifestyle activism or political activism? Like, because I think that everything we're doing here is addressing climate change. That's like how we've set ourselves up. We like don't own vehicles. We try not to burn any fossil fuel. Like those are major ways of, like, we've done audits on our our resource consumption, and found that we use like a fraction of the typical American's resources, like 10% or something, depending on what you're talking about.
In a
If
lot of
it's
the areas, yeah.
water, it's like 14% of the typical American's water use, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's people that are working on the climate, what's the carbon tax legislation that's going on? There's people that have been pretty active in that, making calls, and we had a march.
CCL thing.
Yeah. So different people have different levels of engagement with the political process around that, but there are some people who do that.
I feel like there's a multiplying effect with just the conversations that we have with people who have conversations with other people.
Mhm.
I mean, I think that most of the things that we say in this village that we think is important hits a pretty wide audience of maybe like a couple thousand people just on the first level, second level conversation, because we're well known and we have a pretty big network and a lot of family, and some of them think we're crazy, but other people are listening and are adjusting their lives as it works for them, which is what we're actually all about here. We don't ask anybody to just kind of like throw all their values out the window and start over. We all have different levels of commitment in different areas of being sustainable and ecologically sensitive, and we all have different things that we think are important.
Mm-hmm. Did we answer the question?
They didn't ask again.
Okay.
Well, we like, our mission is to educate people, so we have like tours regularly. We have a visitor program, and so like hundreds of if not thousands of people come through here every year, and especially with our visitor program, it's a much more hands-on, intimate, detailed experience here. And not everybody who comes here decides to move here, but like a lot of them get a good experience, and they might take that back to where they live and implement the things they've learned here. So.
And we have student groups who come through. We just had a group of kids not too long ago from a high school near St. Louis, and they were saying great stuff. I had no idea that fossil fuels were that bad, and like they learned that. They took that home with them. That's awesome.
Yeah, our goal is not to like hide ourselves in the wilderness and just all try to like not use fossil fuel. Our mission is to send our message out there to people and educate.
Ask questions in the chat box below or to the right. It's not my right, but you're right.
Yeah, we've got a nice big group of people online watching right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to
Thanks
hear.
for watching.
Yeah, we'd love to hear also how people are watching. Are you watching mobile, or are you watching from a desktop? We would love to know about that.
That'd be useful data for us.
Yes.
See, we're always experimenting.
Yeah.
We don't get that kind of data.
I think we do. All right, I've got another question.
We should have a little sign that says question box.
Great. Lindsay says she's on a desktop.
Okay.
Victoria wants to know how do single parent families fit into the community?
The same way any other kind of family or non-family unit does. I'm not sure what the question is. We have a number of single parents living here now and have had them in the past. Yeah, I'm not sure what the question. Can you be more specific?
Well, I'm just gonna say like a lot less awkwardly than they might in some other places, because as a community, we have a whole bunch of people looking out for each other, and we tend to do things together and to pool our resources. So, we have opportunities for kind of homeschooling, preschooling situations or unschooling situations that kids do together, not necessarily with their parents, but maybe other parents in the community or people in the community that aren't even parents.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of opportunities and a lot less commuting, and kind of those latchkey situations don't happen because everybody's in the same community together, and most of us aren't going outside the community to work. So I think it works really well. I think that that this is a great place for a single parent and their kids.
I think it's a great place for kids, regardless of your parenting scene.
Well, and the thing about living here is, like, especially if there are other parents with kids, like we don't have a daycare or like anything like that set up, but I think that you could do something like that where parents share care of a bunch of kids, but mostly people just let their kids run around free roaming, you know, a lot of the time, and it's not always ideal, but like it happens here, and that means, I guess, that you have time to do your own stuff. But it's also possible to cooperate with other parents in care of children, or to collectively hire someone to take care of your children. There's like spiral scouts. That's an event thing that happens here.
It's like a co-ed, not so, it's a scouting thing, but it's for all, it's boys and girls together, and it's pretty cool.
Something I noticed as a non-parent is that kids here learn really early about boundaries. For the most part. Like, everybody has their occasions, but we, especially the non-parents like me, probably just don't. We're the people. We just don't differentiate. We treat them like adults. We're like, hey, what are you doing? And like, and we include them in our activities.
And that's the other thing, is you might not always, depending on your kid, you might not always have to pay someone to watch them. Because your kid, I mean, I've had dates with kids. We say dates and we don't mean that. Like, I have hangout dates with people. And I've had hangout dates with people who happen to be children. And it wasn't for money. It was like, I enjoy this person and I want to spend time with them. And the fact that it gives mom a break is great for mom. And she can go do something else. Or dad. It happened to be a mom in the case I'm talking about. But you don't even necessarily have to pay someone to hang out with your kid if there's a good connection with a responsible adult type person.
So I just snapped. Can you explain what the snap means to the people who are hearing that?
Sure. If you can hear that, snap means that if I say it and I say something and Dan snaps, it means he agrees with what I just said. So there's been some snapping throughout that Aaron's been doing in the background. You can't see him, but he's like, oh yeah, I agree with that. Me too. Shorthand.
Would you compare it to twinkle fingers?
I don't know the twinkle thing. Does that also mean
Sparkles.
I agree with you?
Sparkle fingers.
Or I like it?
That's like a Occupy movement.
I call it jazz hands.
No, that's jazz.
That's what we
Oh,
always
that's right.
used in the co-ops in Madison.
Yeah.
Jazz hands.
Which meant I agree or I like what you said.
It's just like, yeah, it meant I agree. And it's a more visual thing than a sound thing. It doesn't interrupt or whatever. It's not disruptive. It's more like visual. So.
We got another question. Your vote can count. Asks, what do older people or elder people do as they age in a community like this? Things like health issues, ...
I don't know. In Missouri, it's kind of difficult because, well, we don't have we have Obamacare, but the Missouri citizens voted against getting any funding for the Medicaid, and some people who can't make a lot of money here, like a lot of us don't make a lot of money, and so we don't have an option if we make below a certain income bracket, and so health insurance is kind of risky here, or like not uncertain. But I don't know. I mean, like we had this question last week, and we just brought up the fact that I think when you're in a community like this, like people are around to help out, and like we had somebody who got cancer recently, and he was dealing with a lot of these issues, and his partner was also having to bear a lot of the responsibility of taking care of him, but other people in the community stepped in to help out, and I think that's what a lot of people see community as being about. And one of the benefits of living here as you get older is potentially that you can have a support around for you. I guess if we were all in our 60s or something, or 70s, then we'd have to deal with that situation because we wouldn't be able to help each other.
We'll have to get the kids to come back.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
the community's moving in that direction, though. There are people that have been here since close to when the community was founded, who are, either in their 60s or pushing it, and we really are starting to look at the aging in place issue, because there are issues that the community probably needs to address. One that was uncovered while our community member was sick with cancer is just getting a wheelchair through the village.
Mhm.
Like, can be challenging depending on where you're at. We do have gravel paths that are pretty good, but certain like shortcuts and whatever just, you know, are not as accessible. And these issues are coming up. We have an elders group here now that meets once a week and discusses things like, you know, like just the things that affect people as they age. I'm feeling them now. I'm 46 and I'm starting to have, you know, I'm wondering, do I have hip dysplasia? Are they going to put me down? And things like that, you know, aches and pains that I didn't feel before, and other things that are affecting how I can work and how much energy I have. And there are a lot of people kind of entering these issues at the same time. And so it's something that we're looking more and more at. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of being supportive of each other in those.
And I want to be clear that some of the issues that impact people as they age are also issues for people who are younger who have disabilities. I was pretty significantly disabled here for many years and used a cane to get around, and was super glad that we built an accessible community building, and that we had an accessible shower that I highly advocated for. And I was really glad I did that when I wasn't disabled, because then when I needed to use it. So that impacts people not just who are older. But it is true that I think we need to look a lot more at access from getting around and how that's going to work, and trying to help people understand when they move here, when they're strong and young and healthy, that you're not going to be that way forever, and you can't guarantee that every single person in your house is always going to be like that. So I could see that we could start working a little bit more on universal designs, designing our home so that it works for everybody. Anyway.
Maybe a ladder loft, not a good idea.
Not if that's all you got.
Victoria says, in tears. I felt called to this community for years. Hope to visit soon. Thank you for your answers.
Oh, thank
good.
you. Yay. We hope you'll come soon.
We're going to talk about our visitor program for a second.
We can. We have a visitor program. All the slots are full this year. So if you want to come to our visitor program, you're going to have to wait till next year, which is a bit of a bummer.
We don't have the schedule online yet, do we?
No, the dates we haven't figured the dates out. We usually don't do that until a little closer to the end of the year, but maybe we'll try and do it sooner this year because there's so many people that want to come.
Yeah, but this year we only had 4 sessions, and next year we're looking into having 5 or 6.
Or maybe
so we might
6,
have space
yeah.
for
We'll have more room.
Space for more people.
One possibility, if you want to come to Dancing Rabbit before that, besides, of course, you could always come and stay at the Mercantile, the on-site bed and breakfast. It's a private co-op, or a co-op business that runs that bed and breakfast. But there's also a permaculture design course coming up. Dan and I actually both took it last year when it was here. It's pretty great. And that's another possibility. It's September 17th to 25th, and there's still some slots available. So if you wanted to come, that'd be kind of a pretty great way to come.
Another chance to come is it this weekend, the soap making workshop? I'm signed up, and I'm like only one of a couple people that are. We need more attendees.
Yeah, the Milkweed
to learn how to make
Mercantile
soap.
is doing a soap making and herbal medicine. You could take one day or both of them together, and it includes meals at the Mercantile, which are fantastically great. I don't think it's this weekend, but maybe it is. I think it's
actually like that. Maybe the 20.
Yeah, I'm not here. It's the 28th.
28th.
I'll be
There
gone.
you
It's
go.
like the 27th,
Okay. I knew it
28th
was
of August.
Either
That's
just before
another
or just after I travel. Yeah.
opportunity.
So
Exactly.
the milkweedmercantile.com, or is it just milkweedmercantile.com?
It's milkweedmercantile.com, and go to workshops.
How do they find out about workshops or the PDC?
You can go to the dancingrabbit.org and /permaculture. That'll get you there, or just go to the front page of our website, and it should be right up near the front.
There's a visit menu and then workshops and events.
Web person.
Yeah. Rolling out a new website this weekend.
Maybe. Soon.
Well, until we get more questions, do y'all have any issues or subjects you wanted to bring up that you can share with our pretty decent sized audience?
I was just gonna say that, like, if you're interested in natural building at all, like, this is like one of the only places in the country where you can see
Mm-hmm.
many examples. I think there are over 30 examples of natural buildings here. So like there's not a lot of places in the world, or in the, I guess maybe in the world there are, but like not in this country. And it's because we have basically no building codes here. So it's allowed us to experiment and build with natural building and not have to get a permit and zoning approval to do it. And so I think it's a great, like if you can make it to the permaculture course or something like that, it's a great opportunity during that time to tour the village and see all of these examples of natural building.
You can also talk to people that have lived in a bunch of different, like I've lived in 4 or 5 different buildings here, and I can say like, here's what I liked about that one, here's what I didn't care about, and then this part was, but if we'd only done that differently, that would have been nice. And you can get a really wide range of answers to those questions, which is great too.
What actually happens is that like we're all subject to the National Building Code, but in this county, in this depressed area of northeastern Missouri, we don't have a building inspector. And so we do have a lot of care in the community for building buildings that are not only sustainable, but that are going to stand up to
Safe.
the crazy storms that we have. So we build things well. You know, they might not all be quite to code, but they're rationally built for our environment. And and we are lucky to be in a place that is so economically depressed that we don't have a building inspector. Maybe. I mean,
well, I don't think we have any local
There's
zoning
no local
codes.
zoning
So like
codes, right.
in a city, or even like close in agricultural areas outside of a city zoned agricultural, they often do have building codes and requirements, and
right.
we don't have those here.
Well, as a
And that's-
nation we do, but certainly
right.
there's nobody local to
there's
enforce them.
international building code too. So yeah.
Right. Is that the one that Strawbale got added to, or was it the national one?
I think it
Was international,
I
right?
think it was international. Yeah.
We've got a question. Is solar power supplying much of your electricity? Question mark.
Oh,
About 1.5 times
well,
what we use, I think, or somewhere around there. Maybe you would know better, Aaron. I don't know
yeah.
where we're at.
We're producing we're producing more electricity than we use on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and that's we have a covenant that changed a few years ago when we went on the grid that says that we're going to produce more energy than we consume. And as a community agreement, we try to actually do twice as much, and we don't quite get there. But we do produce at least as much as we use. There are a few homes that are still completely off the grid. I'm in a hybrid situation, so I have a tiny battery and a tiny solar panel that provides most of my like charging and lighting and things like that, but I do actually have a plug pulled over from next door that's on the grid for refrigeration.
Ah.
And we do have some some wind turbines here, but it's not a lot. It's mostly solar power, and we have our own, we are on microgrid. Not everybody's on the microgrid. Some people are still off grid, and then we use mostly, well, we have an electric vehicle, one electric vehicle, but it's got short range. It's a Nissan Leaf, and then our other vehicles we use biodiesel for part of the year, and then a mixture of biodiesel and petrodiesel for part of the year. And then usually in the dead of winter, we're only using petrodiesel. And that's something that there's just not technology right now to do it differently. Maybe in the future we'll have more electric vehicles and be able to get off of fossil fuel totally. But
That'd be great.
but that's, and then some people cook with propane. So those are kind of our energy consumption needs.
I just got an electric assist wheel for my bike.
Have you used it?
I did use it, and actually I have a little problem. Like, nobody told me that you shouldn't use a high torque electric assist wheel with aluminum forks.
Oops.
And fortunately, at a very low speed, my dropouts just exploded,
Oh,
and my wheel rolled away.
but you're okay.
Yeah, I survived.
Whoa.
So I'm waiting for a new fork, and then I'll have electric assist wheel.
Yay!
Yay for solar powered bicycling.
Yeah.
So we have one more question. What events do you have for city folks who, so they can come and visit for a weekend and immerse themselves in the village? She's talking about folks who are interested but have limited vacation time.
Yeah,
We
that
were
does
just
come
talking
up.
about that.
I know.
We were just talking about that yesterday in the
Well,
village council meeting.
so it depends on where you're from. If you're from close enough around, then coming for a weekend is reasonable. But the immersing yourself in the village is where it gets a little bit harder, because you could just come and stay at the Mercantile, but it will depend on the village, the folks that live here, that being okay with wanting to immerse you, basically, because we have a ton of people that come through, and we just can't have visitors all of the time. So we have to sort of balance that. Is that what you were going to say? Was the
No.
Mercantile? What were you going to say?
Actually, what I did was when I lived in Chicago, I wanted to come to get to know the community, and I didn't really want to commit a lot of time, but I thought maybe I did. So what I did is I booked a tour and a visitor program at the same time, thinking we have a what is it, monthly tour?
It's the second and
Twice a
fourth
month.
Saturdays of the month.
Oh, okay. During the
warm
summer
season.
season, like
April
from
to October.
April to October, we have a tour every other Saturday, like the second and fourth Saturdays of the month. And so you can come for that, and it's great because it's like a really easy way to get to know the community. Depending on the weekend that you come, you might go to the flea market that's nearby, and you can always go to the Mennonite store. There's things to do around here that will fill up a Saturday, and it's worth coming. So what I did is I booked the tour and the visitor program at the same time, thinking, well, I'm going to go for the tour for the day, and if I don't think it's somewhere I want to come back to, then I'll just cancel my visitor program. And obviously, I ended up not canceling my visitor program, but it was worth, for me, like eco disaster, 6-hour drive in each direction to come here from Chicago and just be here for the tour. I learned a lot.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't know, we have talked about the possibility of like maybe having a shorter opportunity for people to come and visit, because we understand that a lot of people can't take that much time off of work. And so it might be something that we end up doing in the future, is having like a 3-day or something, weekend opportunity for people to come and get a crash course in Dancing Rabbit, at least get that experience. You'd probably have to come back again in order to eventually if you want to live here, because it's just not enough time to have people get to know you and for you to get to know the community to make a decision about moving here. So, but I think that it would be great if we had that opportunity, because a lot of people can't make it to even a week of our visitor programs.
Right.
Keep an eye on our website too, because we book workshops and things that are shorter than visitor programs at times. So we don't really have a lot in the way of workshops on our site right now, aside from the PDC course, because we've sort of been through the season. Like we're actually planning for next season at this point.
Great.
More questions?
Yeah, go ahead and prompt them. Where do you answer, or where do you ask the questions?
Where do you ask a question? Apparently there's either something there or there. If you're on your mobile, look down.
Wait, do I look like I'm honking the button?
Yes.
So when I did put this on my calendar, I put in "Ask a Rabbi" by accident, and that's where I got the idea for it's like "Ask a Rabbi, ask us any question, Jews, Gentiles, whatever you want to know. Rosh Hashanah is coming up. Anything you want to know."
Oh, I got another question.
We should bring a rabbi next time and just put him on camera first.
Oh wait,
himself.
what am I doing here?
We've only got time for a couple more questions, so please get your questions in. Someone wants to know, is the goal to get people to move there or to influence them to live a more sustainable lifestyle?
Oh,
Good question. What he said. Both. So we know not everybody's going to want to come and live here. It's in the middle of nowhere, Missouri. Really? I didn't think I would want to move here either, but I did. But we do need more people to come and live here and help us grow the village. But we know not everyone's gonna, for whatever reason. And we do want those people to take what they learn here and take it into their own lives, whatever part of it they can. Maybe humanure is a little too much for you, but some of the other stuff we do, maybe not so hard. Or you'll get excited about humanure and try and do that anyway.
So Someone wants to know about how much food is grown at the village.
We had these numbers at one point.
Well, I usually give the land walk where we talk about the agricultural projects and stuff when the visitors come here. And I try to be realistic. There are some communities that really exaggerate the amount of food that they grow for themselves because, even if you're growing vegetables, you're really not growing much of your food if you're just growing vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be really growing your staples in order to grow a significant portion of your food. And mostly what we have here is gardens, and people are growing vegetables to supplement their food. And then we get a lot of food through a natural foods distributor, and people try to buy stuff as locally as possible, even if they don't grow the food themselves.
I'm buying a lot of sweet corn right now.
Yeah. And
We do
peaches.
try to get stuff from our neighbors when we can as well, and trying to encourage more of them to grow organically because we would vastly prefer to do that, is another thing that we've done in the past.
And there's definitely a goal to eventually, I think there's interest in the community in agriculture and moving towards growing a lot more of our own food. Part of the problem that we've had is that a lot of our land was in the CRP program, in the Conservation Reserve Program, which is a government program that pays you not to farm land. And we were able to buy this land because a lot of our land was in the CRP program. So we paid off our mortgage with those funds. But it also means that our land was highly erodible. It's classified as highly erodible. Conventional agriculture basically destroyed our land. Like, we lost a lot of topsoil, we lost fertility, and this is what we have to grow on. And a lot of our land was locked up in the CRP program in a contract. And so, like, when I moved here, I wanted to start a vineyard, and I did end up starting a vineyard, but in order to get access to land to put that vineyard on, I had to take it out of the CRP program and pay a big penalty. Like, I paid about $500 for 7/10 of an acre. So that's a big deterrent to people wanting to do agriculture here. And that it was only a few years ago now that we took a portion of our land, about like 17 acres or something, out of the CRP program and made it available for agricultural projects. And now, like, the critters are raising livestock. I have my vineyard going. And so I do have like a hoop house, but we're still not. Our land needs to be restored. It's just it's in really poor condition. So
there's another question coming in about sources of can you describe a little bit more of the local farms and maybe the relationships with the other communities, and also milk. What do we do for milk?
Well, milk comes from a dairy right down the road. We get raw milk from a neighboring dairy that's about, half a mile away or something like that, for $3.50 a gallon, which I hear is a really good price.
Yeah.
Rumor has it.
Yeah, and other neighbors. We have a neighbor that has a farm right next door to us, who sells us beef that's mostly grass-fed. And
We also there's also 2 communities right nearby. Red Earth Farms is right next door, and some of them grow some grains and some beans, and some people get stuff from them either to feed their animals or to feed themselves. And they also sometimes will sell us their surplus vegetables. And then Sandhill Farm is 3 miles away, and they're another intentional community, and we often get food from them as well.
they actually have a CSA or community supported agriculture, like a subscription program that several people are enrolled in here.
Okay, this is going to be the last question. Brina wants to know, how much bartering do you do with local farmers?
If you mean local farmers who aren't like members of communities, I don't think much bartering happens with them. But with Sandhill and Red Earth Farms, or like I might barter with Dan for some of his fabulous mozzarella. And I guess that's really, people do whatever they do. We also have an local currency called elms, and that happens a lot. So I usually, if I buy cheese from Dan, I usually pay him with elms. I don't barter with him.
Yeah, so essentially that's kind of bartering. It's just like
Right.
a placeholder for whatever she got her elms from. It's essentially the same thing. We don't, we like in the area, we mostly have the farmers in our area raise either feed for livestock or they raise livestock. So it's corn and soybeans and pasture, and there's not much food like
Right.
being grown that would
We would eat.
we would eat. Yeah. So it's not like we have a lively farmers market or anything. I know there are like there's like Mennonites who sell somewhat during the season at Zimmerman's, but that's about all we get as far as local food around here.
One thing that we do is there's a friend of the community who grows apples. He's got an apple orchard that's organic, and we'll go and pick for him, and we'll keep a certain amount of what we pick in exchange, either what we pick or sometimes cider.
There's a bunch of people going to do an elderberry
And there's an
harvest
elderberry
for another
thing
farmer
too.
this
All the
week.
elderberries you can eat in one sitting. No, I don't know what they're doing with the elderberries.
You can
Maybe
come to the front
making
yard.
wine
They're
or something.
making, they're making wine,
Yeah.
jam, and the cordial stuff.
Okay.
Stuffing them in their.
They're not very good to eat straight.
No,
You
they're
have to
not very
sweeten them.
good raw.
They
No.
make a good salad dressing, I've learned.
Good to know.
We're gonna
Is that it?
we're gonna do it right there. Can you just
All right.
remind our everybody what time we do this?
8 o'clock Central Time,
Monday.
Monday. Ask a
Rabbit.
Rabbit. Next week, we don't know who's going to be in here, but there's a lot of people chomping at the bit to come and answer your questions. So bring them. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.